The first night I realized the rules weren't just suggestions was the night I watched Michael die, or disappear if you want to be technical. He was the security guard before me, the one whose uniform jacket still hangs in the break room with the sleeves torn open like he tried clawing his way out of it. Management says he quit. The police report says he walked off site, but I saw the security footage. People don't walk off site by moving straight upward off the floor into the dark ceiling void of an abandoned mall. And the worst part, he broke Rule 3, just one rule, one stupid rule that everyone thinks is a joke until the mall proves otherwise. Rule 3, if you hear tapping on the glass storefronts after 2:13 a.m., do not look toward the sound. Keep your eyes on the ground and count to 30. It sounds ridiculous, right? Like something a board supervisor made up to haze rookies. But around 2:14 a.m. that night, during my training shift, Michael and I were doing a final sweep of the East Wing, the oldest part of the mall, the part with empty shoe stores and boarded escalators, when I heard it tap, 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 light, rhythmic, like someone gently knocking their knuckles against glass. "Don't look," Michael said without even turning his head. "Eyes down, just walk." His voice trembled the way a voice does when the body already knows danger. I should have listened. I really should have, but humans are curious creatures and curiosity kills more than cats. I lifted my eyes just a fraction, just enough to see movement in the reflection of the darkened storefront window. Something tall was standing inside the store, too tall, a shape bent at impossible angles like broken limbs trying to remember they used to be human. Its fingers dragged slowly across the inside of the glass, leaving long, foggy streaks as it tapped again and again and again. The glass bulged inward with each touch, as if whatever was on the other side wasn't knocking at the barrier but pressing against reality itself. "Look down," Michael hissed. I snapped my head downward, heart slamming against my ribs, but it was too late. The rules are very clear. If you look, it knows. We took 3 steps before the tapping behind us turned into pounding. Hard, desperate, hungry pounding that shook the storefronts and made dust rain from the rafters above. Then came the sound that will haunt me until the day I die. A low, wet chuckle, not human, not close to human, something trying to imitate the idea of laughter without knowing why humans do it. Michael pushed me toward the service hallway. "Run," he said. "Don't stop, don't turn around." I listened this time. We sprinted into the employee corridor, the pounding echoing behind us, the overhead lights flickering violently, shutting off one by one like something was swallowing the electricity. "Keep going." Michael shouted. I didn't stop until we reached the security office, slammed the steel door shut, and locked the deadbolt. We waited, listening. The pounding stopped, then silence. Absolute, suffocating silence. "You okay?" he asked, hands shaking as he reached for the monitor feeds. I nodded, too breathless to speak. "Good," he whispered, "because we're not supposed to be alive after breaking a rule." He clicked through camera angles. North Wing empty, food court deserted, Carousel Plaza still. East Wing, we saw it, not the creature, Michael. He was standing in the hall alone, except I was right next to him in the office, but on the monitor he was walking slowly toward the storefront I had looked at. "That's not me," he said quietly. "That's not me at all." His copy stopped at the glass, tilted its head and lifted a hand, long fingers extended, longer than human. Then it tapped, tap, 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 the same rhythm, the same mocking cadence. The camera feed distorted, glitching into static, then sharpening again. But now the copy was facing the camera, face pressed against the inside of the glass with a smile stretched too wide. Michael backed away from the monitor. "No," he whispered. "No, no." The lights in the office went out. The entire mall hummed like something enormous had taken a breath. Then the ceiling tiles above us shifted. Something crawled overhead, slow, dragging limbs, claws scraping. We held our breath. Rule said count to 30, so we did just in case. When the sound stopped, Michael exhaled shakily. "We need to leave," he said, "but humans don't always get choices inside that mall." The door behind us unlocked itself with a soft click. "Run," he said again, but this time I hesitated just a second, long enough to see hands reach down from the ceiling and pull him upward silently, like gravity reversed for him alone. No scream, no struggle, no body, just darkness swallowing him whole. He broke one rule, just one, and the mall collected its debt. Backhand index pointing right. If you were offered a night security job with strange rules, would you follow them or walk away immediately? Candle, follow this channel and Stay alert, the next rule is worse. I didn't apply to be the night guard at an abandoned mall because I liked danger or horror stories or urban legends. I took the job because I was broke, tired, and very, very good at pretending red flags were just temporary problems. 2 months before my first shift, I'd been working day security at a grocery chain. Fluorescent lights, screaming kids, shoplifters arguing over rotisserie chicken, until a budget restructuring email showed up in my inbox and my keycard stopped working the next morning. Rent didn't care about restructuring. Neither did my overdue car payment or my phone bill or the way my fridge rattled every time it tried to keep 3 sad eggs cold. So when the listing popped up online, overnight security position, closed retail property, above average pay, I didn't think this sounds cursed. I thought double pay for night shift and nobody around to bother me. The ad was vague, just a company name I didn't recognize and an address, Hawthorne Galleria, East Service entrance. I hadn't heard that mall's name in years. It used to be the place everyone went in high school, cheap dates in the food court, pretending to shop while really just walking in circles with your friends, sneaking into movies at the attached cinema. Then the big outlets opened 2 towns over, the anchor stores disappeared one by one, and Hawthorne started dying. Last I heard, it was temporarily closed for renovation. That temporary had been going on for almost a decade. Still, money is money. I drove out for the interview on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. The mall sat back from the main road like it was embarrassed to be seen, a massive concrete carcass with blank signs where brand logos used to glow. The huge Halloween superstore banner from some long-gone seasonal shop still fluttered on one side, half ripped and faded to a pale orange ghost of itself. Weeds grew tall in the cracks of the parking lot, and every light pole leaned just a little, as if tired. I parked near the loading docks around the back, where the email had said staff entrance in all caps. A single metal door with peeling beige paint and a security camera above it waited for me, the lens so dusty I doubted it could actually see anything. I knocked. A few seconds later, the door buzzed and clicked open a couple inches. A man in a gray polo shirt with a lanyard around his neck looked out, glance quick and bored, like he was already done with me before he even met me. "You Blake?" He asked. "Yeah, ID." I handed over my driver's license. He glanced at it, then at me, then shrugged and pushed the door open. "I'm Rowan, Regional Facilities Manager, come on." The hallway inside smelled like old floor wax and mold, trying very hard not to be noticed. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, some flickering, some dead. We passed crates, broken pallets, and a stack of outdated promotional displays promising big summer savings in cheerful, lying fonts. "So you've done security before?" Rowan asked as we walked. "Yeah," I said, "grocery stores, a couple events, a warehouse job, mostly nights." He nodded like he'd stopped listening halfway through. "This is easier. No customers, no staff. Mall-'s been closed to the public for years. Your job is basically walk the property, check cameras, make sure nobody breaks in. Kids, squatters, metal thieves, that kind of thing." "People still try to get in here?" I asked, a little surprised. "You'd be amazed what people do when they see an empty building," he said, "or what they think is empty." He said it casually, but something about the way his mouth tightened didn't match the tone. "Any special risks?" I pressed. "Homeless camps, gangs. It's quiet," he said too quickly. "You'll have a partner for the first few nights. After that, you'll solo." "Partner like the guy before me?" I asked. It was an innocent question then. I hadn't seen the footage yet, hadn't watched Michael go up. At the time, I was just trying to sound like I understood how jobs worked. Something flickered behind Rowan's eyes. Annoyance, maybe, or discomfort. "Yeah," he said. "He's moving on. Don't worry about it. You'll meet him tonight. He'll show you the route, the office, the system, all that. We believe in smooth transitions." We stopped at a set of double doors with push bars. Above them, the faded word security was stenciled in flaking paint. Rowan pulled out a key, unlocked the door, and led me into what would become the center of my whole world, the security office. It wasn't impressive. 2 desks piled with paperwork, a mini fridge humming loudly in the corner, a stained couch that probably had its own ecosystem, and most importantly, a long wall of monitors. 12 screens arranged in a 3x4 grid, some black, some cycling between camera feeds, empty corridors, shuttered storefronts, dark food court, parking lot. No people. No movement, just the mall frozen in time. You'll clock in here, log your rounds. On this system, Rowan tapped a dusty keyboard attached to a computer tower that sounded like it was dying. Camera feeds are labeled. Half the cameras don't work. We're not spending money to fix them unless corporate decides to reopen, and that's not happening anytime soon. So why keep security at all? I asked. Insurance, he said. An empty building is a liability. We need a body on site at night in case anything happens, and if nothing happens, even better. He said that last part with the overly firm optimism of someone who desperately wants it to be true. He walked over to the back wall where a corkboard hung between two old filing cabinets. A laminated sheet of paper was pinned in the center, surrounded by faded shift calendars and emergency exit maps. At the top of the sheet in bold block letters were the words Hawthorne Galleria Night Security Protocols. Underneath, a numbered list. I took a step closer. Rule 1 caught my eye immediately. 1. Do not prop open any exterior door after 11 p.m. If a door will not close, call your supervisor. Do not attempt to block it yourself. Fair enough, seemed like basic security. Rule 2, though, was stranger. 2. If the carousel in the West Court is moving after midnight, do not approach it. Check the cameras instead. If the carousel horses are facing the wrong direction, leave the area and lock the office door. I frowned, thinking it was some kind of in-joke or relic from when the mall was still open. This is old, right? I asked, from when there were customers here. No, Rowan said, that's up to date. His voice had gone flat again. You'll follow all of them, non-negotiable. I scanned further down. 3. If you hear tapping on the glass storefronts after 2:13 a.m., do not look toward the sound. Keep your eyes on the ground and count to 30. I felt my mouth twitch. It was too specific to be random. Is this a prank? I asked, trying to keep the irritation out of my voice. Some hazing thing for new hires. You'll think it's funny until it isn't, Rowan said. Then you won't think anything at all. That should have been my sign to walk away. Normal managers don't say things like that about rules in an abandoned mall. But the part of my brain that still believed in paychecks, rent, and it can't be that bad pushed aside the part that wanted to run back to my car and never think about Hawthorne again. Look, he said, rubbing his face like he regretted saying too much. I don't care if you believe the rules. I care that you follow them. You stay inside, you walk your rounds, you don't break the protocols, and the building stays insured. That's all anyone upstairs cares about. And the guy before me? I asked quietly. Michael, Rowan's gaze shifted to the hallway. He'll show you the ropes tonight, he said, like that answered everything. You start at 9 p.m., he goes off at 3. After that, it's your mall. It wouldn't be, though, not really. The mall was never mine. It belonged to whatever wrote those rules, and whatever watched, patient and hungry, from behind the dark glass every time the clock crept past 2:13 a.m. Backhand index pointing right. What would scare you more, breaking a rule, or never knowing why the rule exists? Candle subscribed quietly. The mall is listening. My first shift started on a Thursday night. The kind of damp cold where the air feels like it's trying to seep through your clothes and under your skin. I pulled into the employee lot at 8:47 p.m., the sky already black, the mall looming over the cracked pavement like a dead cruise ship run aground. Most of the parking lot lights were out. The few that worked flickered weakly, casting cones of pale orange over patches of broken glass and weeds. For a second I sat there with my hands on the steering wheel and thought, if I just drive away right now, nobody will chase me. Then I remembered my bank balance and the rent due in 4 days and the fact that my fridge contained half a bottle of ketchup and a single, suspicious-looking yogurt. Survival has a way of sounding louder than intuition. I grabbed my jacket, zipped it up, and headed toward the rear entrance. The same beige door buzzed open after I knocked, but it was Rowan who answered this time. A guy about my age, maybe a few years older, stood there in a dark security jacket with a faded patch that said Hawthorne Galleria Security in peeling white letters. He had dark hair pulled back into a loose knot, a stubble shadow on his jaw, and eyes that were too tired for someone under 40. You the new guy? He asked. Blake, I said, holding out my hand. Michael, he replied, shaking it. His grip was firm, but his palm was cold. Come on, I'm not doing the tour twice. He led me down the hallway, the same one Rowan had taken me through, except now the overhead lights seemed dimmer, as if they'd gotten the memo that night had officially started. My footsteps echoed behind his, the sound swallowed quickly by the concrete. "So, you read the protocols, Mickey?" Elle asked without looking back. "Yeah," I said. "Some of them, you think they're bullshit." I hesitated. "I think they're specific." He snorted, a humorless sound. "That's one word for it." We passed through the double doors into the security office. It looked different at night, not in layout, same desks, same couch, same humming mini fridge, but the monitors had taken on a presence they didn't have in daylight. 11 out of 12 were on, each showing a different angle of the mall. The dark food court with its dead neon signs, the glossy tile corridors lined with shuttered storefronts, the escalators frozen in place like skeletal ribs. The 12th monitor was black, a small piece of tape on the frame reading Cam 9, do not use. I noticed Michael's eyes slide past that one a little too quickly. "You'll clock in on this system," he said, tapping the ancient keyboard. "Technically. Timestamps matter for payroll, not for whatever's out there. It doesn't give a shit when you start." "Whatever's out there," I repeated. "You're really committing to the bit, huh?" He gave me a look that wasn't playful at all. "You think I laminated those rules for fun?" I remembered Rowan saying the card belonged to him. "You wrote them." "I wrote some," he said. "Others were here before me. I added to the list as I learned things. Things like don't look at the glass if you hear tapping." "Exactly like that," he said quietly. He dug into the drawer and pulled out a second laminated card identical to the one on the corkboard, only more worn around the edges. He held it out to me. "This one's yours. Keep it on you. Read it again when you're on break. Read it when you get home. Eventually you'll know it by heart." "And if I do?" I asked, trying to sound like I was humoring him. Michael's mouth twitched into something that wasn't quite a smile. "Then the mall will teach you." It's not a gentle teacher. I slipped the card into my jacket pocket next to my wallet. It felt heavier than it should, the way it had when Rowan first handed it to me. "There's one thing you should know," Michael said, settling into the chair in front of the monitors. "These rules aren't preventative exactly. They don't stop things from happening. They just give you a way to survive when they do, sometimes." I watched him punch a few keys on the keyboard and bring up an overlay showing camera numbers and timestamps. "How long have you been here?" I asked. "About a year," he said. "Nights only. There were 3 guys before me in that time. One lasted 2 weeks, one lasted 3 months, one lasted a single shift and didn't come back after his first night. They quit, to quit," he said. "One," he stopped, jaw tightening. "There was an incident. Official story is that he walked off the job. Unofficial story is that we watched him take the escalator up to the 2nd floor on Cam 3 and he never got to the top." "Never got? What does that even mean?" He clicked a key, bringing up a feed labeled Archive OCT Escalator. The footage was grainy, timestamped 2:19 a.m. 2 months ago. The escalator in the West Wing was on screen, a motionless metal staircase frozen mid-rattle. A lone figure in a dark uniform stepped onto it at the bottom, hat, jacket, the reflective strip on his vest catching the dim emergency lights. He started up. Halfway between floors, the footage glitched. The screen fuzzed out into static for less than a second, then snapped back. The escalator was still there. The camera angle was the same, but the man was gone. No exit at the top. No stumbling back down. No sign of him anywhere on screen. "Maybe the camera cut," I said, because my brain needed an explanation, any explanation. "Maybe he got off during the glitch." Michael rewound and played it again. The escalator, the man, the climb, the split-second blur, the empty stairs. "We checked Cam 4, he said. "Covers the upper-level landing. Nothing. Checked Cam 6, hallway at the top. Nobody. Checked every camera in the wing. No other angles of him. They combed the building for 8 hours after that. Nothing. No footprints, no dropped keys, no open doors. He just didn't exist in the building anymore." "So where is he?" Michael stared at the frozen frame for a long moment. "Best case, dead somewhere outside, unrelated. Worst case, he let the sentence die. Anyway, that's why I added Rule 7. I pulled out the card and found it. 7. Do not use the west escalator between 2:00 a.m. and 3:00 a.m. If you must access the 2nd floor, use the east stairwell and keep one hand on the rail at all times." "Hand on the rail?" I asked. "Why?" "Because if you don't, sometimes you don't make it all the way up," he said. "Sometimes you end up somewhere else. The rail helps. I don't know how or why, it just does." He stood, grabbed a flashlight from the rack by the door and tossed me another. "Come on," he said. "Tour time." Better to see the place before midnight, while it's still pretending to be regular Cree. Epi instead of what it becomes. There's a difference, you'll feel it, he said. Everyone does. We stepped out of the office and into the service corridor. The hum of the monitors faded behind us, replaced by the faint, vast silence of the empty mall. He led me through another set of metal doors, and suddenly we were stepping out onto the main concourse. I hadn't been inside Hawthorne Galleria in years, but it was like walking into a half-remembered dream that someone had taken a knife to. The architecture was the same, open central atrium, skylights overhead, 2 floors of storefronts facing each other across the wide tiled walkway, but everything had been drained of life. The skylights were filthy, letting in only thin grayish light from the parking lot lamps and the distant, cloud-dimmed moon. The fountain in the center was dry, its basin cracked, a tangle of dead leaves and fast food wrappers caught in the drain. Storefronts were shuttered with rolling metal grates, some tagged with graffiti, some left with faded sale posters in the windows. "We're moving, see you at our new location," they promised in bright fonts that lied. "Feels like a zombie movie set," I said quietly. My voice bounced back to me from the high ceiling, smaller than when it left. "Just wait until the air system kicks off at midnight," Michael said. "Then it really starts feeling wrong." We walked. His flashlight beam stayed low, skimming over the tiles, the grime, the abandoned kiosks covered in dusty tarps. He pointed things out as we went. "Cam 1 covers this end of the concourse," he said. "Cam 2 overlaps near the food court. Most of the cameras up top don't work, so you'll have to do more rounds on the second floor yourself. Try not to linger near the old cinema. That's rule 5. I checked. 5. Do not stand in front of the cinema doors for longer than 10 seconds. Hear a movie playing after midnight, walk away without turning around." "What happens if you do?" I asked. "Hear a movie. If you listen," he said. "You start seeing scenes from your own life on the posters, stuff nobody here should know, arguments, fights, accidents, things you're not proud of. People tend to stand there frozen, staring. Some don't come back from whatever they see. I don't let the trailers roll long enough to find out." He said it casually, but his hand tightened on the flashlight. "You sound like you've tested it," I said. "I've tested too much," he answered. "Don't be like me, be boring. Boring guards live longer." We crossed into the food court. The tables and chairs were still there, scattered like people had just gotten up and left halfway through a meal. Trays with old napkin dispensers gathered dust. The big backlit menu boards for each restaurant were dark. Only the ghostly shapes of lettering remained, faint outlines of Combo 3 and Family Deal that the bulbs used to illuminate. The smell here was different, stale grease, old soda syrup, and underneath it, something sour and metallic that made me think of a refrigerator left unplugged for too long with something inside it that used to be meat. "What's that smell?" I asked, covering my nose with the back of my hand. "Ignore it," Michael said. "Gets worse if you pay attention. Rule 9. I checked the card. 9. Do not acknowledge any smell of cooking food after 1:00 a.m. There is no working kitchen in the building. If you feel hungry, eat from your own bag." "That's not subtle," I muttered. "The mall isn't subtle," he replied. "It's patient. It will use whatever it can to get you to break a rule: hunger, curiosity, guilt, nostalgia. It doesn't care which one works as long as you step close enough." "Close enough to what?" I asked. We were passing the edge of the food court now, nearing the entrance to the west wing. Beyond, I could see the silhouette of something large and familiar rising in the gloom. "The carousel." "That," he said. The carousel looked nothing like I remembered it from childhood. Back then, it was bright, spinning lights, upbeat music, the kind of place parents took pictures of their kids and teenagers laying on the rail pretending not to have fun. Now it stood in the center of the west court like a fossilized corpse. The metal was dull and flaking, the poles streaked with rust that dripped down like dried blood. Platform was covered in dust thick enough to record footprints, but the surface was smooth, untouched for years. The horses were the worst part. Their once colorful paint had cracked into a spiderweb of pale lines. Their eyes, originally shiny black marbles, had gone cloudy. But even in the dim emergency lights, something about them felt alert, like they were watching, waiting. And every single horse faced inward toward the dead center of the ride. None faced outward the way carousels are supposed to. I blinked. Were they always like that? "No," Michael said. "They turned about 6 months ago." My skin crawled, all of them at once, cameras cut out for 30 seconds, he said. When they came back online, they were turned. Every horse, every pose changed. Some are subtle, some, he pointed to one near the edge. Its neck was bent at a wrong angle like it had snapped mid-motion. Aren't so subtle, I swallowed hard. So we just avoid it. We follow rule 3, he corrected. Don't go near it after midnight. Don't check on it in person. Don't try to listen for music. Don't look too closely at the mirrors. Mirrors. Around the top canopy, he said. They look warped in daylight. At night, they don't reflect the mall. They reflect something else. Something else like what? He gave me that tired, practiced look again. Trust me, you won't like the answer. He continued walking. I forced myself to follow. The deeper we moved into the west wing, the colder it seemed to get. The ceiling felt lower here, even though I knew it was. Something about the acoustics felt wrong, too. The emptiness swallowed our footsteps too quickly. Second floor is over there, Michael said, nodding to a set of metal steps. We'll go up later. First, the department stores. You mean they're still intact, abandoned but intact? Sears, J.C. Penney, and he hesitated. Vander S. I don't remember Vander S. I said. You shouldn't, he replied. It closed before the rest of the mall did. Something happened. They say a worker fell into the freight elevator shaft after hours, but he paused, then shook his head. There's a reason Rule 12 exists. I pulled out the card again. 12. Do not enter any department store that still has mannequins inside. If a mannequin is facing the doorway, do not look at its face. I felt my stomach twist. What's wrong with the mannequins? Nothing, he said. Until midnight. You're not making this easier, I muttered. I'm not trying to. I'm trying to keep you alive. We reached the massive double doors of Sears. The glass was so dirty it looked fogged, like breath on a window. The lights inside were off, but faint moonlight through the roof skylights gave enough illumination to make out the outlines of racks, checkout lanes, and yes, mannequins, dozens of them, some standing, some slumped, some with arms posed strangely like they'd been mid-gesture when something pulled their strings. None faced the door. Why don't we go in? I asked. Because the last time someone went in, he saw one matching his height and build standing where it shouldn't have been, Michael said. Turned toward him when he turned around, wasn't there when he blinked. He made it to the door before something grabbed him. Grabbed him, I echoed, like a hand, like a mannequin arm around his ankle, he said. Left bruises shaped like fingers. Nobody believed him until Cam 8 caught a glimpse of something crawling across the floor inside the store the next night. Crawling, I repeated, like a person, like a mannequin that didn't understand how knees worked. My skin prickled. I stepped backward without meaning to. Don't turn your back to the glass, he said sharply. Why? Just don't. I obeyed. My chest felt tight. Everything in this place felt wrong, but this part felt worse, like we weren't supposed to be standing there at all. Come on, Michael said. We keep moving. Standing still is bad practice. We walked, our flashlights slicing through the corridor. The next storefront had a bright teal sign that used to read CLARES, but the A and the I were missing now, leaving CLERS in chipped letters. Pink glittery decals clung to the windows. Unicorn sale, buy 2 GT 1 free. Behind the grates, jewelry racks were toppled over. A lone mannequin head lay on the floor, its plastic face cracked. Kids used to love that place, I murmured. Kids used to love the whole mall, Michael said. Now the mall loves kids back. What does that even mean? Nothing you need to deal with unless you break Rule 6. I checked again. 6. If you hear a child laughing between 2:00 a.m. and 4:00 a.m., do not investigate, do not call out, do not acknowledge. I exhaled. Great, laughing children, fantastic. It's never children. The way he said it made every hair on my arm stand up. We continued toward the center of the mall, where the immense atrium opened up. Moonlight filtered down through the grime-coated skylights, painting the second floor in long shadows. The escalator loomed in the distance, its metal teeth gleaming. This is where he vanished, Michael said quietly. The guy before you? Yeah. He lifted his flashlight and pointed. Right there, middle step. The beam landed on the exact spot I'd seen in the grainy footage. The escalator felt like it was watching us. I forced myself to breathe normally. So, what happens on your rounds? I asked. You just walk this every night. Walk, watch, listen, he said. Mostly listen. For what? Stuff you don't want to hear. We kept moving. The stretch between the escalator and the old cinema felt strangely narrow, though nothing had cha. Yet physically, maybe it was the darkness, maybe it was the silence, maybe it was the way the shadows pooled unnaturally beneath the benches. The cinema's just ahead, Michael said. Don't look at the posters. Why not? Because they're not for you. His voice was barely above a whisper now. Not anymore. I glanced sideways just enough to catch the row of glass frames lining the wall. My stomach lurched. The posters were blank. No movie titles, no actors, just white sheets of glossy paper. But shapes were forming in the white. Shadowy outlines shifting, almost as if they were trying to arrange themselves into scenes, into faces, into memories. I tore my gaze away. Okay, I said, breath shaky. I'm convinced. Rules aren't jokes. They stopped being jokes a long time ago. We reached the end of the concourse where the old anchor store's gate was half shuttered. Beyond it was darkness so complete my flashlight seemed afraid to shine there. Last stop before the stairs, Michael said. Once we do the second floor, you'll have seen everything you need for tonight. And then what? I asked. He looked at me, really looked, and for the first time he seemed young. Then you make a choice, he said quietly. Whether you want to stay in this job long enough to learn more rules or long enough to disappear. The way he said disappear made me feel like we weren't talking about quitting anymore. We were talking about something the mall decided for you, something final. The farther we moved toward the old cinema wing, the more the mall changed in ways I couldn't explain. It wasn't the layout that stayed the same. It was the air, thick, heavy, like walking into a basement that had been sealed shut for decades. My flashlight beam seemed to shrink, as if something in the dark was swallowing the light itself. Every step felt muffled, like we were walking across something soft instead of polished tiles. Why does it feel like this? I whispered. Like what? Michael asked without turning. Like the air's thick, means it's getting closer to midnight, he said. The mall wakes up a little more the closer we get. I didn't ask what wakes up meant. I didn't want the answer. We reached the wide corridor that split off toward the cinema. The entrance was marked by a faded neon sign half burned out. Starlight Cinemas, only the letters STAR still flickered weakly, buzzing like they were struggling to stay alive. Movie posters lined the walls on both sides, each covered in grime and dust, but every now and then the glass surface gleamed faintly like something moved behind it. Should I avoid looking? I asked. Yes, Michael said quickly, eyes forward. I kept my gaze locked on the floor. Even then I could see the posters through the reflection on the tiles. The silhouettes inside the frames shifted slowly, faces forming, dissolving, changing into something else. Not movie scenes, not human, something watching. We walked past the concession stand next. The machines inside were coated in dust, but the popcorn warmer glowed with a faint orange light, like embers that refused to die. Has that been on since the mall closed? I asked. Never turned off, he said. Rule 9 exists because of that. I checked my card again. Rule 9, if the popcorn machine turns off, leave your post and run. Something has crossed the boundary. Crossed from where? I murmured. He didn't answer. That scared me more than any explanation could have. A sudden metallic clang echoed from somewhere deep inside the cinema. It sounded like a seat snapping upright or a door slamming shut. I jumped. Michael didn't flinch. Ignore it, he said. It's just the ushers. I froze. The what? We don't see them, we don't try to. His voice dropped. Rule 10. I checked again, heart hammering. Rule 10, if you hear footsteps coming down the cinema aisle, do not shine your light, do not breathe loudly, do not acknowledge. I swallowed hard. Are the ushers human? He shot me a cold look. None of this place is human. We turned away from the cinema wing, heading toward the second floor staircase. The escalator loomed again, motionless, its metal teeth gleaming like an open jaw under the dim light. I kept my gaze forward, but my peripheral vision kept pulling toward it like it wanted to be seen. Why does it feel like it's watching? I whispered. Because it is, he said. Rule 5 exists for a reason. I checked it again. Rule 5, do not stand within 10 feet of the escalator after 12:15 a.m. It recognizes hesitation, recognizes, I said slowly, as in understands it, uses it. His voice went cold. The guy before you froze in front of it, just for half a second too long. I didn't ask what happened next. The answer was written all over Michael's face. We reached the bottom of the staircase leading to the second floor. The metal handrails were cold, too cold. Frost clung to parts of it even though the mall wasn't that cold. Up we go, Mitch. Ale said quietly, keep your light low, shadows move up here. Move, I echoed. Move how? Like they're waiting for you to look at them. I didn't breathe for a moment, then slowly I raised my foot onto the first step. Halfway up the stairs, the sound started soft, steady tap tap tap, like someone walking just out of sync with us. Slightly behind, slightly above, footsteps that didn't match ours. I froze. The sound froze too. I lifted my foot. The echo lifted half a second later. "Don't stop," Michael murmured. "It's copying you. If you acknowledge the sync error, you break Rule 14. Rule 14. My eyes scanned the card fast. Rule 14. If something copies your footsteps incorrectly, pretend not to notice. It gets angry when it knows you know. My throat tightened. I forced myself to keep walking, matching Michael's pace. The footsteps behind us did not match, not even close, but we were not allowed to hear that, not allowed to notice. Top of the stairs, the entire second floor stretched out in eerie quiet, dim lights flickering in a half-dead rhythm. This level was worse, not because it was darker, but because it felt inhabited, not by customers, not by staff, by something that had lived here long before the mall closed, something that claimed the place once it emptied. "Stay close," Michael said. "Hear the mall talks." "Talks," I whispered. "Talks how?" A soft breathing sound drifted from the broken store to our right, long, slow. "Wet, like someone with water in their lungs." "Like that," Michael said. I pressed a hand over my mouth without meaning to. We passed a cluster of benches around a dead fountain. Water stains coated the inside of the basin like black veins. Something metallic glimmered at the bottom. A keyring, a phone, a security badge. "Don't look directly in," Michael warned. "It mirrors the last moment of anyone who disappears here." A chill ran all the way up my spine. How many disappeared more than they tell us? The second floor corridor winded toward the old food court. Every table was overturned, chairs scattered, soda machines dark, but the far corner was lit, one single table under a pendant light. "Who leaves the light on?" I whispered. "Nobody," Michael said. "Rule 11. I checked. Rule 11. If you see a lit table in the food court after 1:30 a.m., do not approach. Someone is waiting for you. They look like someone you trust. They are not." My chest tightened. Has anyone ever gone to the table? "Yes," he said softly. "They usually sit down. And what happens to them?" He didn't answer. And he turned sharply, leading us away from the food court and toward a long corridor at the back of the second level, one I didn't even know existed. "Where does this go?" I asked. Michael's voice lowered. "Employee wing." I thought that was sealed. It was. The mall likes opening doors that weren't opened before. That sentence alone made my blood run cold. We stopped in front of a set of double doors, the windows blackened from the inside. "This is where we turn around," Michael said. "Why?" Stared at the door for a long moment, because beyond this point is where Rule 15 applies. I checked the final line on the card. Rule 15, when you see a door where no door should be, leave immediately. It means you are being invited. You must not accept. I felt my pulse spike. "So that wasn't here before," he shook his head slowly. "No, and it's been opening earlier every night. The mall was changing. The rules were changing, and something behind that door wanted us inside." Michael turned. "We're done for tonight." His voice was almost a whisper. "Before the mall realizes you're new." We walked away from the employee wing doors, but with every step I took, I felt them behind us, felt the weight of them like two eyes carved into metal, watching our backs retreat. The mall was quiet, but it wasn't an empty quiet. It was a held breath, an animal crouched low in the dark, waiting. The second floor always felt wrong, but tonight it felt aware of me. Like it was learning my footsteps, memorizing the rhythm of how I moved, how I breathed, how I flinched. "Why does it feel different tonight?" I whispered. "Because you're here," Michael said without slowing down. "The mall pays attention to new blood." I hated the way he said that, new blood. The phrase hung in my chest like a cold nail. As we moved down the corridor, the lights flickered in a ripple, starting from the far end and snapping toward us like a wave, first dark, then dim, then buzzing, then still. "Did that happen last night?" I asked. "No," he said. "That's new. New is bad, right? New is very bad." We reached the balcony railing that overlooked the first floor. The view was worse from above. Everything felt distant, distorted. The mall wasn't supposed to look tall, but somehow it did. Like the ground floor had stretched a little farther downward than it should have. I gripped the metal railing. It was vibrating. "Why is it shack?" "Gee," I asked. "It's not," Michael said. "It's breathing." I yanked my hand away instantly. The metal exhaled, a low groan moving through the structure like something huge shifting in its sleep. "We're leaving," he said. We don't stay up here longer than we need to. As we started toward the staircase, a faint footstep echoed behind us. Slow, heavy, one step, then another, not matching us, not copying us, coming closer. Is that, I whispered. No one should be up here, he muttered. Move quietly. We didn't run. Running triggers things, he told me that earlier. Running tells them all you're prey, but I walked fast, controlling every breath. The footsteps behind us quickened, matching our pace, closing the distance. Don't turn around, he said through clenched teeth. Why not? Because if you see it, it sees you. My throat tightened. We reached the top of the staircase and the footsteps stopped instantly, dead silence, swallowing the entire second floor in a single gulp. Why did it stop? I whispered. Because it's waiting to see what you do next. What does it want? He didn't answer. He only descended the stairs quickly and motioned for me to follow. The moment my foot touched the first step, the lights above us hummed sharply. Then tap, 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 the footsteps resumed, but now faster, coming right to the edge of the second floor, coming to the top of the staircase. Michael, I choked out. Don't look, he said again. His voice was tight now, not calm, not steady. He was scared. If he was scared, I knew we were in real danger. We descended the stairs as fast as we could without breaking into a run. A cold draft wrapped around my neck like fingers brushing against my skin. I could feel it leaning over the railing, watching, waiting. What happens if it comes down? I whispered. It doesn't come down, he said. It drags down. That single sentence felt like it peeled a layer of warmth off my bones. We reached the first floor. The moment both our feet hit level ground, the footsteps above stopped again. A long breath of silence followed, then a single tap right above us, directly overhead. It's choosing someone, Michael whispered. Choosing for what? The mall decides who gets to stay. I felt sick. The idea of anything here choosing made the air colder. We hurried down the main hallway, past the boarded-up bookstore, past the shuttered clothing outlets, past the cracked floor tiles that looked like dried veins. As we passed one storefront, a mannequin turned. I didn't see it move, only the afterimage of it finishing the movement. Its head now angled toward us, its glassy eyes reflecting nothing. Did you see that? I gasped. Mannequins don't move. Here they do, Michael said. Don't look at them directly. They align themselves with whoever lingers. My skin crawled. I felt dozens of unseen eyes on us as we walked. The shutters rattled faintly, metal vibrating like teeth chattering in the cold. The lights above flickered again. The first floor was supposed to be safer, but now it felt worse, like everything here had been waiting for us to come back down. Then a child's laugh echoed through the hall, high, sharp, echoing off the abandoned storefronts. No, Michael said under his breath, not this early, not tonight. What rule is that? I asked, panicked. He shook his head. There's no rule for it because you're not supposed to survive it. My stomach dropped. What do you mean survive what? Keep walking, he whispered. Don't acknowledge it. It sounds like a kid. It's not a kid. The laugh echoed again, closer this time. It came from inside the old candy shop, then the toy store, then behind us, then ahead. It wasn't moving, it was everywhere. I felt a tug at the bottom of my pant leg. I flinched and looked down. Nothing, empty air. Keep walking, Michael said sharply. Don't stop. The laugh turned into humming, a tune I recognized but couldn't place, like a melody from childhood, distorted, played backward. My heart was pounding so loud I thought the mall might hear it. We were nearly back at the security office when the humming stopped abruptly, replaced by a voice. Why didn't you say hi? The words slid across the mall like cold breath on glass. I froze completely, my brain stopped working, my legs locked. Michael grabbed my arm hard enough to bruise. Don't respond, he hissed. Rule 6. I checked it with shaking hands. Rule 6. If you hear a child speaking after 2:00 a.m., do not reply. It is not speaking to you, it is trying to be you. I know you heard me, the voice whispered. A soft scrape moved behind us, like something small dragging its fingers along the floor. Don't turn around, Michael said, voice trembling. It gets stronger when noticed. Something exhaled at my back, cold, wet, too close. I felt tears sting my eyes. Michael, I whispered, I can feel it. Just a few more steps, he said. Don't break, not now. The voice whispered again, Rig. HT behind my ear. I already know your name. My blood turned to ice. We reached the security office door. The voice giggled. You'll let me in next time. Michael shoved me through the doorway and slammed it shut behind us. Then, for the first time all night, he locked the door with shaking hands. The lock clicked into place, but the sound didn't comfort me. It felt flimsy, like putting a padlock on the mouth of a cave and pretending it would keep the monster inside. Michael stood with his forehead against the metal door, breathing hard, not from running, he never ran, but from fear, real fear. The kind that shakes the bones of someone who's been here long enough to know exactly what that voice meant. Sit, he said finally, not turning around. Don't go near the windows, don't look at the monitors yet. I sat in the worn swivel chair, my hands still trembling. My chest felt tight, like cold fingers were still wrapped around my ribs. The security office lights flickered, not a normal flicker, a slow pulse, like the mall syncing itself with the rhythm of something else or someone else. Michael, I whispered, what was that thing? He didn't answer right away. He walked to the corner, opened the bottom drawer of the filing cabinet, and pulled out a flask. He took a long drink before offering it to me. I shook my head. I don't drink. You will tonight, he said, and pushed it firmly into my hand. I took a small swallow. It burned my throat but steadied my breathing. It's called the Echo, he said finally. At least that's what the old guards called it. What does it want? It doesn't want, it replaces. I felt my blood run cold. Replaces what? People, he said it flatly, like he'd been waiting to tell me but hoping he wouldn't have to. It studies you, voice first, then footsteps, then breathing, then words. He turned slowly. His eyes were tired, haunted. If you answer it even once, it gets permission. Permission for what? To copy you, to try you on like a jacket. My stomach twisted. How does someone stop it? You don't, he said. You survive it long enough that it gets bored. That didn't sound like hope. That sounded like a delay. I looked around the room, the only place in the mall that felt even remotely human. 4 monitors, 2 filing cabinets, a battered gray desk, and a coffee machine that hadn't worked in years. Why didn't you tell me about it before? I asked shakily. The rules don't mention it at all. They don't mention everything, he said. The rules aren't for surviving forever. They're for surviving the night. I swallowed hard. And tomorrow. He looked at the wall clock. The hands were stuck on 2:14 a.m., frozen. That depends on if you make it to tomorrow. A chill crept up my spine. The mall had a way of freezing time, literally or metaphorically, I wasn't sure. But the clock was wrong. My phone was dead. The monitors buzzed faintly in the background. Something flashed on the upper left monitor. I flinched, Michael. Don't look yet, he warned. Too late. The screen had switched to the second-floor hallway, the spot where the footsteps had followed us. The camera shook slightly, as if something was brushing against it. The feed blurred, refocused, blurred again, and then stopped. A shape stood in the middle of the hall. My shape. Same height, same jacket, same vest, same posture, but the face. I leaned closer involuntarily before Michael grabbed my wrist hard. Don't, he snapped. What is that? I whispered. On the monitor, the figure lifted its hand and waved, slowly, mockingly. Is it the Echo? I asked. No, he said, voice trembling. They never show up on cameras. Then what? It's something worse, he said quietly. Something that only mimics the body, not the voice. The figure lowered its hand and tilted its head. The movement wasn't human, too smooth, too sharp, like a puppet being jerked by strings. It stepped closer to the camera. And closer. The screen went static. I felt the breath leave my chest. "Michael," I whispered, "I think it's looking for us." "It always is," he said. "The mall tests new guards. It wants to see which thing gets to you first. The echo, the footstep mimic, the mannequins, the usher, the escalator." "Or what?" He met my eyes. "Or the thing with my face." A soft scrape sounded behind the door. Not knocking, not footsteps. A dragging sound, slow, persistent, like something sliding its body along the floor inch by inch. "Michael," I whispered. He held up his hand. "Don't speak." The scraping stopped. Then, tap, tap, tap. Something tapped the bottom of the door, metal against metal, 3 slow, deliberate taps. Then a whisper. "Let me in." Not the child's voice. My voice. But not coming from the echo's direction. This one was lower, rougher, wrong. "What do we do?" I breathed. "We wait," he whispered, "and we don't talk to it, we don't move, we don't make a sound." The tapping changed to scratching, long nails dragging down the meta. L carving lines across the surface. My heart hammered. The whisper came again, closer, almost speaking through the door. "Let me in." Michael leaned forward very slightly, lips barely moving. "This one doesn't want to copy you," he breathed. "What does it want?" I whispered back, terrified. He swallowed hard. "It wants your body." The scratching stopped instantly. Silence. Then, a click. The doorknob turned. Slowly, deliberately, like something on the other side had finally grown patient enough to try a new tactic. Michael's face went pale. "That lock," he whispered, "it's not supposed to turn on its own." The knob twisted again. The bolt rattled. Something was unlocking the door from the mall's side. "Michael," I whispered. His voice was barely a breath. "Run." The moment Michael whispered run, something shifted inside me, some survival instinct older than logic, older than fear, older than rules. I didn't think, I didn't breathe, I just moved. The security office had only one door, and that door was currently twisting under the grip of whatever was outside, but the room itself had a second exit, one that wasn't meant for guards, a maintenance hatch. A low, square opening behind the filing cabinet with a metal cover half bolted to the wall. The previous shifts had used it once during a power outage, and even then they hated it. "Through there," Michael hissed, shoving the cabinet aside with enough force to scrape deep lines across the linoleum. The doorknob behind us turned a few degrees more, whining like the metal was bending. Something pressed against the door, slow, steady pressure that made the metal dent inward. "Don't look at it," he warned. "Just get inside." The hatch was barely big enough for a grown man. It led into a crawl space that snaked behind the storefronts, a cramped artery of concrete and old electrical lines. I dropped to my hands and knees and squeezed through the opening, swallowing panic as the narrow walls pressed against my shoulders. The air smelled like dust and rusted metal and something faintly sweet, like spoiled fruit. Michael crawled in behind me and pulled the metal cover shut. The instant it clicked, the office door slammed open with a sound like a giant's fist hitting steel. The force shook the crawlspace walls around us. Something heavy moved inside the office, slow, purposeful, like it didn't need to hurry. "Go," Michael breathed. "Move before it figures out where we went." The crawlspace was pitch black. My flashlight was dead, but Michael's still flickered weakly behind me, casting jittery shadows along the narrow corridor. The floor was concrete, but the walls were old drywall, soft enough that I could hear things through them. Soft thuds, distant creaks, the slow sighs of the mall's breathing pipes. I crawled as fast as I could. My elbows scraped the ground, my vest snagged on jagged metal. The smell grew stronger, rotting sweetness, like overripe fruit left in the sun. "What's in here?" I whispered. "Storage," he said. "Old mall junk, things they never threw out." Something thumped against the wall to our right, hard enough to send dust raining into the crawl space. I froze. "Don't stop," he whispered urgently. "Stopping makes noise." We crawled another 15 feet before the corridor opened into a slightly larger pocket, just big enough to crouch in. I pressed my back against the wall, gasping for breath. "Where does this lead?" I asked. "To the service tunnels," he said. "The ones mall staff used before everything shut down." "Are they safe?" "Nothing here is safe," he said, "but they're less watched." That answer didn't comfort me at all. The crawl space behind us groaned like something heavy was pressing down on the floor. Dust rained again, then silence. "Is it gone?" I whispered. "No," Michael said, "it's listening." We kept crawling, the space growing narrower as we moved deeper. The darkness pressed in from all sides. The sweet smell grew stronger, mixed with something metallic like old pennies or dried blood. The air grew warmer too, humid against my face. "Why does it smell like this?" I whispered. "Because we're close," he said. "Close to what?" He didn't answer. The tunnel angled downward, the concrete turning slick beneath our hands. My palm slid through something wet, sticky. I jerked back instinctively. "What the hell? Don't think about it," he said. "Keep going." But I did think about it. The texture wasn't like water. It felt thick, like syrup, like something that used to be alive. I wiped my hand against my pants, but the stickiness clung to my skin. As we moved deeper, the darkness changed. It felt heavier, like the air itself had weight. The crawl space widened slightly, enough for us to crouch. Michael lifted his flashlight and swung the beam ahead. The light hit something hanging from the ceiling. Dozens of somethings. My stomach lurched. Old mall uniforms, security jackets, name badges, all dangling from wires like trophies. Some were shredded. Some were stained. Some still had cracked walkie-talkies clipped to the belts. "These are the old guards," Michael said quietly. "Their uniforms, at least. Where are the guards?" "Gone," he said. "Taken or worse." I swallowed hard. "Why keep their clothes?" "Because the mall learns from them," he said. "Every guard who disappears makes it smarter." I felt a chill run through my entire body. "Smarter how?" "Rules change," he said. "Paths move, voices evolve. It uses what it takes." That sentence alone made the tunnel feel smaller, hotter, crueler. We moved forward again. The corridor sloped downward sharply, forcing us to slide on our hands and knees. The sweet smell grew overwhelming, thick and suffocating. My eyes watered. "Michael, what is that smell?" I whispered. He hesitated. "Too long." "Rot," he said, "but not the normal kind." The flashlight flickered, then died. The darkness swallowed us completely. I couldn't see my hand in front of my face, couldn't see the walls, couldn't see him. "Michael," I whispered. "I'm here," he said. His voice sounded close, too close, like he was speaking in my ear. "Keep your hand on the left wall, don't let go." I reached out, my fingers brushed the concrete, and then something cold brushed my knuckles. Not Michael, something smoother, like a hand without bones. I jerked my hand back instantly. Don't describe it," he said sharply. "The mall listens for names." I forced myself to breathe slowly, crawling forward blindly. My fingers found the left wall again, and I followed it like a lifeline. The darkness suddenly vibrated. A low hum shook the crawl space like a warning growl from a massive creature. "Why is it doing that?" I whispered. "It knows where we are now," Michael said. "We need to reach the exit." "Where is it?" "About 20 feet ahead, just keep crawling." The hum grew louder. The walls trembled. Dust fell like rain. Something crawled across the ceiling, fast, skittering, clawing, following us. I crawled faster, nearly slipping on the slick floor again. The thing above moved faster, matching me, closely, too closely. Then its weight pressed down just slightly on the drywall overhead, making the thin material bow inward. My breath hitched. "Michael, don't stop," he said. "If it breaks through, it drags you up." "Up where?" "Into the walls." That phrase froze my blood. Into the walls, into the place where the mall stored the old guards, into the space where nothing returned human. The hum grew shriller, the ceiling bent lower. "We're almost there," he whispered. 5 more feet. I crawled with shaking hands, reaching blindly forward, and my fingers brushed cold metal, a handle. "The exit." "Open it," he breathed. I yanked hard. The hatch creaked, stuck, then gave way with a metallic crack. Cool air rushed in. We scrambled out and slammed the hatch shut behind us. Silent. Then, scratch. Something raked its nails across the other side of the door. Not giving up. Not leaving. Just waiting. Watching. Learning. The mall knew where we were now, and it was adjusting the rules. The moment the hatch slammed shut, I stumbled backward onto cold concrete, gasping as if I had been underwater for hours. The air outside the crawl space felt clean compared to the suffocating rot we just crawled through, but it was still heavy with the stale scent of an abandoned place. My hands were trembling uncontrollably. Michael leaned against the wall, breathing hard, sweat dripping down his forehead despite the cool temperature. The corridor around us was dimly lit by a single flickering bulb, its glow bouncing off dusty service pipes and peeling paint. This part of the mall wasn't meant for shoppers or staff. It was the skeleton of the building, a long spine of utility tunnels stretching unseen beneath everything. "Where are we now?" I whispered, my voice hoarse. "Maintenance level 2, he said, swallowing hard. "Below the storefronts, but above the mechanical floor. The mall doesn't reach this deep easily. Doesn't reach easily." I repeated, hating the implication. "So it can reach." He didn't answer, which was an answer on its own. We stood in silence for a few seconds, listening for anything following us. The scratching at the hatch stopped abruptly, not tapered off, just stopped, like whatever was on the other side suddenly lost interest or decided to approach from another direction. The silence made it worse. "We can't stay here," I whispered. "No," Michael said. "We move slowly, stay close to the wall. If the lights go out, stop walking." "Why?" "Because the floor shifts in the dark." He started walking, and I followed tightly behind, ducking under low pipes and stepping over scattered tools that had been abandoned long ago. The maintenance tunnel stretched on, narrowing in places, widening in others. It felt like walking through the bowels of something alive. The light above us flickered erratically, like it was struggling to stay alive. Each flicker made my stomach tighten. I didn't know what the mall would do if the lights went out here, and I didn't want to learn firsthand. We rounded a corner and the tunnel opened into a larger room, a maintenance hub with rusted cabinets, an overturned rolling cart, and a maze of wires hanging like vines. In the center of the room was a metal grate covering a drainage pit. Something dripped steadily from above, hitting the grate with wet, rhythmic splats. I didn't want to know what it was. Michael approached the far door, pressing his ear against the metal. "We're close to the old storage corridor," he murmured. "It leads to one of the mall's forgotten back exits." Forgotten, meaning it doesn't like us using it. As he pulled the door open, a wave of colder air swept in sharp and biting like winter wind. The corridor beyond was darker, its lights entirely dead. The only illumination came from the flicker behind us. "We have to go through that," I whispered. "Yes," he said. "It's the only path the mall hasn't closed yet." "Why is it so dark?" "Because something in that corridor doesn't like light." I felt my throat tight. "Is there a rule about this part?" "Not one written down," he said. "But the unofficial one is simple. Don't stop walking. Don't touch anything. Don't listen." "Don't listen," I repeated weakly. "To what?" He took a slow breath. "Voices, knockings, whispering. None of it is for us." We stepped into the dark corridor. The temperature plunged instantly, biting into my skin and filling my lungs with cold air. The darkness was thick, almost physical. A primal fear rose in me, instinctual and sharp, like every ancestor in my bloodline screaming, "Turn back." But we moved forward anyway, because going back meant something else waiting for us in the crawlspace tunnels, or worse. The darkness swallowed the sound of our footsteps. The only noise was our breathing. Even that sounded wrong, too loud, too exposed. The corridor walls felt narrow, but I couldn't see them. I kept one hand brushing the wall textures, peeling paint, cold metal, old concrete, just enough to guide myself, just enough not to get lost. After maybe 20 steps, I heard it. A faint tapping behind us. A single tap. Then another. Not footsteps. Fingernails on metal. Tap, tap, tap. Michael, I whispered, something S following. No, he said sharply, don't notice it, don't acknowledge it, keep walking. But it's getting closer. It won't touch you unless you react. The taps quickened, the darkness behind us seemed to breathe, soft, slow inhale, then a long exhale that brushed the back of my neck. I clenched my jaw to keep from making a sound. My footsteps felt heavier now, as if the darkness were gripping my ankles with each step. Then the whispering began. Soft, low, many voices layered over each other. Hey, stop. Turn around. Look at us. We're right here. My heartbeat thundered in my ears. The voices were so close I could feel breath against my ears. My mind screamed to run, but the darkness felt like it would swallow me whole if I broke into a sprint. Michael, I whispered, my voice cracking, I can hear. So can I, he said, keep going. The voices shifted tone, no longer whispering, now mimicking. My brother's voice. My mother's voice. Teresa's voice. All saying my name. Blake, Blake, look at me. Every hair on my body stood on end. They sounded exactly right, perfect replicas. The corridor itself seemed to lean closer with each step, narrowing, tightening, like it didn't want us to pass. Suddenly something brushed against my ankle, cold and soft, like a hand dragging across my leg. I gasped. The whispering stopped instantly. The corridor fell deadly silent. Then a voice right behind me, right below my ear, said, "Found you." I froze in terror. Michael grabbed my wrist and yanked me forward violently. "Don't stop, move." I stumbled, nearly falling, but he kept dragging me. The darkness surged behind us. The tapping became clawing, rapid, frantic. The corridor vibrated, the air thickened. Something lunged in the dark, scraping the wall right beside my head. "There," Michael shouted. Ahead, a faint glow, a red exit sign flickering like a dying ember. We sprinted. The darkness roared behind us, not a sound but a sensation, a pressure that felt like a massive, unseen weight collapsing forward. We burst through the door beneath the exit sign just as something slammed into the metal behind us, denting it from the other side. I collapsed onto the cold concrete floor, gasping, shaking violently. The air felt real again. The light, still dim, felt like salvation. Michael leaned against the wall, chest heaving, eyes wide. "We're close," he whispered. "Close to what?" I gasped. He swallowed hard. "Close to the truth the mall doesn't want us to see." The hallway beyond the exit door felt different from every part of the mall we'd been through. It wasn't safer, nothing down here was safe, but it felt neglected. Even the mall itself didn't come here willingly. The air was stale and dry instead of cold and wet. The lights buzzed a little louder. The concrete floor didn't hum under our feet like it had in the crawl space. For the first time since the night began, it felt like the mall wasn't watching us, only remembering us. My breathing came in ragged shudders as I pushed myself upright. The dent in the metal door behind us bulged inward, like a fist had tried to punch through solid steel. I couldn't stop staring at it. "Whatever that was," I whispered, "it wasn't the echo." "No," Michael said, adjusting his jacket. His hands were still trembling. "The echo wouldn't follow into complete darkness. It mimics, not hunts." I swallowed hard. "So what hunts?" He didn't look at me. He stared down the corridor, jaw clenched. "Things older than the rules." We moved slowly this time, our steps quieter and more cautious. The corridor ahead was wider, lined with old posters from when the mall first opened, grand opening flyers, outdated maps, long faded advertisements for stores that didn't exist anymore. As we passed one, a poster corner peeled itself off the wall and curled back unnaturally, like something beneath it shifted. I flinched, but Michael held up a hand. "The walls move," he said calmly. "Ignore it, they don't like attention." His nonchalance made it worse. "Why does the mall do this?" I asked. "Why does any of this exist?" He stopped, slowly turned to me. His eyes were hollow. "Because something built this place from the inside out," he said softly. "Not the contractors, not the designers, something below." I stared at him. "Below what?" He didn't answer. We kept moving, the hum of old lights filling the silence. The corridor curved to the left, then the right. Every few feet, a ventilation grate rattled as though something behind it shifted. We didn't stop to check. The deeper we went, the more the air changed, warmer again, but not suffocating like the crawl space, more like breath on the back of the neck. "Michael," I whispered, "where are we really going?" "The mall's heart," he said, "the part that was never marked on the blueprints. The part the owners pretended didn't exist. And what's there? A truth that explains every rule you've been given." Another chill slid through me. The truth wasn't something I wanted anymore. We reached another set of double doors, heavy reinforced steel, painted a washed-out beige that had yellowed with age. A faded sign read "Authorized personnel only," the letters nearly invisible under layers of dust. "This is it," Michael whispered. "We need to go through." I grabbed his arm instinctively. "Wait, do we even want to open it?" "No," he admitted. "But the mall pushed us down here. It wants us close to something. Better to find it before it finds us." His logic twisted my stomach, but he wasn't wrong. The mall hadn't been letting us escape. It had been guiding us, pushing us down these paths, hurting us. He reached for the handle. Before he touched it, a vibration hummed through the floor. Then a sound. A low, distant groan, long and mournful, echoed from behind the doors. We both froze. "What was that?" I whispered. "Not what," he murmured. "Who?" The groaning continued, rhythmic, like someone dragging something heavy across concrete. Then it stopped abruptly. Silence swallowed the corridor. "We're not opening that," I whispered. "There's no way we're opening that." Michael stepped back. "The mall is deciding." "What?" As if on cue, the lights above us flickered wildly, buzzing, pulsing, vibrating until the bulbs popped one by one. Darkness washed over everything, except for a faint red emergency light glowing above the double doors. "A spotlight. An invitation." "No," I whispered. "No, no, no, we're not going in there." Michael's breath hitched. He looked at the red glow with an expression I'd never seen on him before. "Resignation." "Blake," he said softly, "doors don't open down here unless they're meant to." The metal groaned softly, and I realized the doors were unlocking. Very slowly, very loudly. Then, ka-chunk, the bolts snapped back. The doors creaked open an inch. Just an inch. And a thin stream of warm air slipped out, carrying a smell that made my stomach twist, burnt fabric, old dust, and something that reminded me of the crawlspace rot, but older, deeper, more intelligent. A whisper drifted from the darkness inside. Not loud, not aimed at us, just speaking, repeating something like a mantra. "Step inside, step inside, step inside." My heart slammed against my ribs. "Michael, we can't go in." "We don't have a choice," he said. "We can run." "To where?" he asked bitterly. "Every route we take shifts, every hallway bends, every rule is tightening around you like a noose." Around me. I felt that word like a knife. "Why me?" I whispered. "Why is the mall focusing on me?" He didn't look at me this time. He stared into the slightly open doorway. That's the part I hoped we woo. El Diant reach. I grabbed his shoulder. Michael, tell me. His jaw clenched hard enough to tremble. Because the mall likes you, he said quietly. It learns each guard, it tests them, it decides which ones to keep, and it hasn't shown this much interest in anyone since. He stopped. Since when? I demanded. He swallowed. Since the last guard who almost escaped. The air behind us shifted, like something stepped quietly into the corridor from the other direction. Both of us turned slowly. From the darkness behind, a figure stood at the far end of the hallway. Same height as me, same build, same stance, and when the emergency light flickered, it smiled, my smile, but wider. Wrong, so wrong. Michael grabbed my arm with a force that hurt. Inside, he rasped, now. No, it can't follow in there, only one thing can. One thing, I gasped. He pulled the door open wider and shoved me through the gap. The whispering inside went silent. The door slammed shut behind us with a force that shook the walls. And suddenly, the mall felt like it exhaled. The door's slam echoed through the darkness like a cannon blast, sealing us inside a space that felt older than the mall itself. The air shifted instantly, thick, warm, almost humid, as if we'd stepped into the lungs of something enormous. The red emergency light above the doorway flickered weakly before dying entirely, leaving us in near total blackness. But even without light, the room wasn't empty. I could feel it, a pressure, a presence, something watching from the dark. Something that didn't breathe but wanted to. I pressed my back against the wall, trying to anchor myself, but the surface pulsed faintly beneath my palm like a slow heartbeat. Michael, I whispered, my voice trembling. Where are we? He inhaled sharply, barely audible. A place we're not supposed to stand, he said. The oldest part of the mall, the part that was built around this. Built around what? You'll understand in a moment. I didn't want to understand. I wanted to leave. But the doors behind us were gone, not locked, not jammed, simply gone. A smooth concrete wall now stood where the exit had been, sealing us inside like a tomb. I reached out blindly, touching the air until my fingertips brushed against fabric Michael's sleeve. Why would the mall bring us here? I asked. Because you asked the wrong questions, he murmured, and because it made a choice. A choice about what? You. My whole body tensed. Why me? Why not you? I've worked here too long, he said quietly. It knows me, it's done with me, but you, he hesitated, and the space around us seemed to lean closer, listening. You're something new, and the mall wants new. My heart pounded so loudly the darkness seemed to throb with it. What does it do with new? Sometimes it keeps them, sometimes it copies them, sometimes it uses them. Uses them how? To make more rules. His last words hit me like a punch. The rules weren't just warnings, they were recordings, memories, notes from every guard who had been tested, broken, consumed, or replaced. The mall wasn't protecting guards, it was studying them. My hands shook uncontrollably as I took another step forward, trying to orient myself in the dark. The air shifted again, something brushed against my legs, soft, slow, deliberate. I froze. Michael, stay still, he whispered. What is that? A feeler, a feeler. The word alone made my stomach twist. Don't let it know you're afraid, he said. Fear makes it curious. My breath stuttered as the soft touch traveled up my calf, stopping just below my knee. A cold ripple shot through my spine. I clenched my jaw to keep from screaming. The feeler retreated suddenly, sliding back into the darkness like a tentacle withdrawing. The room vibrated faintly, like something enormous shifting somewhere below the floor. Then slowly, dim lights began to glow around us. Not bulbs, not fixtures, but veins. Thin red lines traced themselves across the walls, spreading in branching patterns like a circulatory system illuminated from within. The glow revealed a massive circular chamber with a vaulted ceiling, cracked tiles and metal beams bent into unnatural curves. This wasn't architecture. This was anatomy. The whole room looked like we were standing inside something that had grown instead of being built. "What is this place?" I whispered. "The core," Michael said grimly. "The mall's first foundation, before stores, before customers, before guards." A cold thought stabbed into me. "Are you saying the mall is alive?" "Alive is too simple," he murmured. "It's aware and it's hungry." The red veins pulsed softly, sinking with a slow, powerful rhythm beneath our feet, like a heart beating deep underground. "Why would anyone build around something like this?" I asked. Michael let out a shaky breath. "They didn't know what they were building around. They found something buried when they broke ground. Something that whispered, something that ma. Do them keep building. Some of the workers left, some went missing, some stayed forever." My stomach twisted. "Forever as in ghosts." "No," he said, voice hollow, "not ghosts." The red light brightened, revealing something massive on the far end of the chamber, like a wall made of old mannequins fused together. Their limbs melted, their torsos merged into a single twisted structure. But these mannequins weren't plastic. Their skin looked leathery, old, preserved, a mound of bodies shaped into a pulsing mass. "What?" I choked on my own breath. "What is that?" "The ones who didn't pass the test," Michael said. "The mall doesn't waste anything." A sudden sharp sound cracked through the chamber like bone snapping. The mound on the far side of the room shifted. A face peeled away from the mass. A human face, eyes open, lips trembling. "Help," it whispered in a broken voice. I staggered backward. "Michael, someone's alive in there." "No," he said harshly, grabbing my arm. "That's not alive. It's echoing what it absorbed." The voice repeated, more distorted now. "Help me," stretching the word like melted wax. Then another voice joined in, a deeper one, then a third, then a chorus of overlapping tones, each pleading, begging, screaming. My legs almost gave out. "We need to leave," I gasped. "There's no exit," Michael said. "Not until it decides." "Decides what?" "Whether it wants you." The words froze the air itself. The mound shuddered violently, then split, not open, apart, like a chrysalis cracking. Something inside pushed forward. A shape stepped out, humanoid but wrong, skin pale as old paper, limbs too long, head tilted at an angle no neck should allow. And when it looked at me, its face shifted, morphing into mine, not perfectly, like a half-remembered dream wearing my skin. My jaw, my eyes, my mouth, but distorted and smiling. Michael grabbed my shoulder. "Don't speak," he whispered. "Don't move, don't breathe loud." "What does it want?" I choked out. "To finish copying you," he whispered. "Then it decides which version gets to leave." The creature took a step toward me. Then another. The lights pulsed faster, and the chamber itself seemed to line forward. Watching, choosing, loving the new possibility of me. The thing wearing my face stopped a few feet away from me, its smile stretching wider than any human mouth should. The skin around its lips trembled as if it was struggling to remember how muscles worked. Its eyes, my eyes, were wrong, too still, too empty. They reflected the red glow of the chamber, but there was no depth behind them, no recognition, just hunger. I stood frozen, every instinct screaming to run, yet my body refused to obey. The air vibrated with a low hum that crawled through my bones, and I realized the sound wasn't coming from the walls. It was coming from the thing itself, like a resonance, a frequency tuned directly to me. "Don't let it finish," Michael whispered urgently. His grip tightened on my arm, nails digging into my sleeve. "If it completes the pattern, it doesn't just copy your body, it takes your place." "What happens to me?" I asked, barely moving my lips. "You become part of the core," he said. "Another rule, another warning no one listens to." My throat went dry. The creature tilted its head, mimicking the exact angle I'd used earlier when I was confused. Even that small habit, it had taken it. I felt exposed in a way I didn't have words for, like my thoughts were leaking into the air around me. The thing took another step forward, and the red veins in the walls pulsed brighter, responding to its movement. Each pulse sent a wave of heat through the floor. I could feel the mall itself reacting, adjusting like a living organism preparing for a decision. You have to break a rule, Michael said suddenly. What? I hissed. The final rule, he said, the one they never write down. The creature's mouth opened and my own voice came out of it, soft, coaxing, familiar. It's okay, it said. You're tired. Let me take over. The sound of my own voice saying those words nearly broke me. My knees trembled. What rule? I asked, desperate. Michael swallowed hard. You're not allowed to confront them all directly, he said. You're never supposed to acknowledge that it's alive. The creature frowned my frown and the air grew heavier. Why? I whispered. Because once you do, Michael said, it has to answer back. The realization hit me like a surge of electricity. The rules weren't just protection, they were limitations for them all. Every rule was a boundary, every superstition a lock. Breaking one wasn't always dangerous. Sometimes it was an act of defiance. The creature took another step. It was close enough now that I could see fine cracks in its skin, like porcelain stretched too thin. I could smell it, old dust, stale perfume, something sweet and rotten underneath. The chorus of voices from the fused bodies behind it grew louder, overlapping into a chaotic whisper. Choose. They murmured, choose, choose. My chest burned as I sucked in a breath that felt too loud in the oppressive space. I did the one thing I hadn't done since my first night on shift. I looked directly at the walls, at the pulsing veins, at the floor that throbbed like flesh, and I spoke. I know what you are, I said, my voice shaking but audible. The chamber went completely silent. Even the hum stopped. The creature froze mid-step, its borrowed face glitching for a fraction of a second, eyes flickering, mouth twitching. You're not a building, I continued. You're not a mall, you're something buried, something feeding. The red glow dimmed, then flared violently. The walls shuddered. Somewhere deep beneath us, something roared, not a sound, but a sensation that rattled my teeth and made my vision blur. Michael shouted my name, but his voice sounded far away now. The creature screamed, not with my voice this time, but with hundreds of voices layered together, raw and furious. Its body contorted, limbs bending backward as if invisible strings were yanking it apart. The veins in the walls darkened, turning from red to black, and the floor split open with a deafening crack. A rush of hot air blasted upward, carrying the stench of decay and old electricity. The mall was reacting, defensively, violently. You broke it, Michael yelled. You forced it to respond. The creature lunged, not at me, but at the fissure opening beneath it. It screamed as the floor dragged it down, its hands clawing at the tiles, leaving deep gouges. Its face flickered through dozens of others, guards, shoppers, children, mannequins, before dissolving into a formless blur. With a final, bone-shaking shriek, it was pulled into the darkness below, and the fissure slammed shut behind it like a closing mouth. The chamber went still. The veins in the walls faded, shrinking back into cracks and seams. The red light vanished entirely, replaced by the weak, flickering glow of emergency bulbs sputtering back to life. The mound of fused bodies on the far wall sagged, losing its unnatural cohesion, collapsing into a heap of lifeless forms that looked more like broken mannequins than people now. The chorus of voices died out, replaced by a ringing silence that hurt my ears. I collapsed to my knees, gasping for air. Michael dropped beside me, hands shaking. I've never seen anyone do that, he whispered. Most don't last long enough to try. Is it over? I asked weakly. He looked around the chamber, then up at the ceiling. Cracks had spread everywhere, spiderwebbing across concrete and tile. Dust rained down in fine clouds. For tonight, he said, but it won't forget you. A low rumble echoed through the space, and a section of the far wall groaned before sliding open, revealing a narrow service corridor lit by dull white lights. An exit, real, solid. It's letting us go, Michael said softly. Why? I asked. He met my eyes. Because you didn't submit, he said, and because now it knows you're dangerous. As we staggered toward the corridor, I glanced back once. For just a second, I thought I saw the walls watching us, listening, remembering, and I understood something that made my blood run cold. The mall didn't lose tonight, it learned. And next time, it would change the rules again. The corridor beyond the chamber felt wrong in a quieter way. Not hostile, not alive, just empty. The walls were bare concrete, the kind you see in unfinished basements, streaked with water stains that ran like old tears. The lights overhead buzzed faintly, flickering in an irregular rhythm that made it hard to tell whether time was moving forward normally. My footsteps echoed too loudly, as if the space around us was hollowed out, stripped of whatever awareness had filled the core. Michael walked a few steps ahead of me, shoulders hunched, like he expected the walls themselves to lunge at him if he relaxed. Neither of us spoke for a long time. Words felt dangerous, like they might wake something that was finally quiet. My heart still hadn't slowed. It thudded in my ears, every beat reminding me that I was still here, still myself. I flexed my hands as we walked, half expecting my fingers to feel unfamiliar, borrowed. They didn't, but the fear didn't fade either. "How long has that corridor been there?" I finally asked. My voice sounded strange in my own ears, thin and cautious. Michael didn't turn around. "It's not always there," he said. "It appears when the mall wants someone to leave or when it wants them to think they're leaving." That didn't help. The corridor stretched ahead in a straight line that seemed longer than it should have been, lights repeating at perfect intervals like a copy-pasted image. No doors, no signage, no cameras. That absence felt intentional. We passed a maintenance cart overturned against the wall, tools scattered across the floor in a neat arc, as if someone had dropped them all at once and then vanished mid-motion. A radio lay among the tea. Wool's, its plastic casing cracked. As we walked past, it crackled to life for half a second, static, then a whisper too faint to make out. I didn't slow down, neither did Michael. "Did anyone ever actually quit?" I asked quietly. "Or did they all just disappear?" Michael stopped walking. The lights overhead flickered once, twice, then steadied. He took a long breath before answering. "Some quit," he said, "but the mall doesn't like loose ends. The ones who leave cleanly, they're the dangerous ones. They remember too much." He turned to face me, his expression tight. "That's why the rules exist, not just to keep guards alive, but to keep them predictable." We resumed walking. The floor began to slope upward almost imperceptibly, enough that my calves started to burn after a few minutes. My watch buzzed against my wrist, startling me. I glanced down. The screen was blank, no time, no date, just a reflection of my face, pale and drawn. I turned it off. At the end of the corridor, a set of double doors waited for us, old metal ones, dented and scratched, with a faded exit sign above them. The red letters were cracked, barely glowing. Michael slowed as we approached. "This is where we split," he said. I stared at him. "What do you mean?" "I mean this door doesn't open for both of us." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a keycard, worn smooth from years of use. "It only accepts one." My chest tightened. "No, we both came this far. You forced them all to react," he said gently. "It hasn't decided what to do with you yet, but it already decided what to do with me a long time ago." I shook my head. "I'm not leaving you here." He gave a sad smile. "You already did," he said, "the moment you spoke to it." The lights flickered again. Somewhere behind us, far down the corridor, I heard a soft, familiar sound, the slow drag of footsteps, too many footsteps. "You need to go," Michael said urgently, pressing the keycard into my hand. "If you stay, it'll reconsider." "Reconsider what?" I asked. "Letting you remain human," he said. The footsteps grew closer, echoing in that hollow way that told me whatever was coming didn't walk like we did. I looked at Michael, really looked at him. There was relief in his eyes, fear too, but mostly acceptance. "You were right," I said quietly. "It learned," he nodded, "and now it's learning how to lie better." I swiped the card. The doors slammed open with a rush of cold air and bright white light that made me squint. I stumbled forward, dragged by momentum, and fell hard onto tile flooring. The doors crashed shut behind me with a metallic boom that echoed like a verdict. I scrambled to my feet and grabbed the handles. They didn't budge. Through the narrow window in the door, I saw only darkness. No corridor, no Michael, just a reflection of myself staring back, eyes wide, breath fogging the glass. An alarm began to sound overhead, not the shrill wail of danger, but the gentle chime used to announce store hours. The lights above me brightened, revealing a familiar space. The main atrium of the mall, polished floors, escalators, storefronts with metal grates pulled down. It looked abandoned but normal, too normal. I checked my phone. It buzzed immediately, screen lighting up with notifications, missed calls, texts. The time read 6:02 a.m. My shift was over. Security cameras blinked red along the ceiling, their lenses tracking slowly, following me as I stood there alone in the center of the atrium. I walked outside into the early morning air. The parking lot was empty except for my car, exactly where I'd left it. The sky was pale blue, birds already calling from the trees beyond the cracked asphalt. For a moment, I almost convinced myself it was done, that I'd escaped. Then I noticed something small. A laminated card tucked under my windshield wiper. I picked it up with trembling fingers. Night security updated rules. Rule 1: do not acknowledge the mall remembers you. I dropped the card like it burned. Behind me inside the mall, something shifted, quietly, patiently, already preparing for the next night. I stood there in the empty parking lot longer than I should have, the laminated card lying on the cracked asphalt at my feet like a dead thing. Morning traffic began to stir on the road beyond the mall, engines humming, tires hissing against pavement, the normal sounds of a city waking up. That normality felt obscene, like laughing at a funeral. I picked the card up again despite every instinct screaming not to. It felt heavier than cardboard should, the surface warm, almost as if it had been held in someone's hand moments ago. The text was crisp, black ink, professionally printed. No stains, no wear, brand new, updated. I didn't read past Rule 1 again. I didn't need to. The implication crawled under my skin and stayed there. The mall remembered me. That meant I was still part of its system, still cataloged, still reachable. I folded the card once, then twice, and shoved it into my jacket pocket like that might stop it from being real. It didn't help. The drive home passed in a blur. I don't remember stopping at lights or turning corners, only the way the radio kept cutting out, replaced by static that sounded disturbingly similar to breathing. I turned it off halfway there and drove in silence, gripping the steering wheel until my knuckles ached. Every reflective surface I passed, store windows, car mirrors, glass bus shelters, made my stomach clench. I avoided looking at them. I wasn't ready to see if something was looking back. My apartment felt smaller than I remembered. The air inside was stale, unmoving. I locked the door behind me and stood there listening. Nothing, no hum, no distant footsteps, just the refrigerator clicking on and off and the faint sound of someone's TV through the wall. I let out a breath I hadn't realized I'd been holding and slid down until I was sitting on the floor, back against the door. Sleep didn't come easily. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the core, the pulsing veins, the thing wearing my face, the way the floor had opened like a mouth. When I did finally drift off, it was shallow and broken, filled with dreams that felt more like memories I didn't own. In one, I was walking the mall corridors alone, keys jangling at my belt, following a set of rules I didn't remember learning. In another, I stood behind a security desk, watching myself patrol on a grainy CCTV feed, always a few seconds behind real time. I woke up to my phone ringing. The sound nearly sent me out of bed. I fumbled for it, heart racing, before realizing it was just an incoming call. The screen showed a blocked number. I stared at it until the ringing stopped. A moment later, a voicemail notification appeared. I didn't listen to it. I couldn't. I tossed the phone onto the couch and went to the bathroom to splash cold water on my face. That's when I noticed the mark. On my wrist, just below the sleeve of my jacket, was a faint red line circling my skin like an old scar, perfectly even, unbroken. I rubbed at it hard, but it didn't fade. It didn't hurt either. It just existed, like it had always been there, and I'd only just started paying attention. I didn't go back to the mall that night or the next. I ignored the calls from the security company, the emails asking why I hadn't signed the updated schedule. Eventually, they stopped trying. That should have been the end of it. That's what I told myself over and over until the words lost meaning. The first sign that it wasn't over came 3 days later. I was in the grocery store standing in line when the overhead speakers crackled. The music cut out mid-song, replaced by a familiar chime. My stomach dropped. A calm, professional voice filled the store. "Attention shoppers, security to the main atrium." My knees went weak. That was the exact phrasing used in the mall, the exact cadence. The same pause between words. No one else seemed to notice. People kept unloading carts, chatting, scrolling on their phones. I stood there, frozen, until the music came back on like nothing had happened. That night, I found a folded piece of paper slipped under my apartment door. No envelope, no handwriting, just printed text. Rule 2, do not respond if you hear your role announced outside the building. I tore it in half and threw it in the trash. 10 minutes later, my phone buzzed with a new email. No sender, no subject, just a single line of text in the body. Acknowledged. I stopped sleeping after that. Everywhere I went, I started noticing things that felt slightly off. Escalators that hummed with the same frequency as the mall's atrium. Security cameras that followed my movement a little too smoothly. Store mannequins positioned so their heads faced the entrance, no matter how the rest of their bodies were arranged. I told myself I was paranoid. That trauma does that to you, makes patterns out of coincidence. Then I saw him. I was crossing the street near my apartment when a familiar figure stepped out of a storefront window's reflection. Tall, slightly hunched, wearing a security jacket identical to mine. Michael's face looked back at me from the glass, pale and expressionless. He didn't move, didn't blink, he just watched. I spun around. The sidewalk was empty. When I looked back at the window, my reflection was alone again, but my heart didn't slow. It never really did after that, because deep down I understood what the mall was doing. It wasn't pulling me back physically. It didn't need to. It was expanding. Every place with rules, every building with security, every space designed to be watched, patrolled, controlled. The mall was no longer confined to one location. It was a concept, a system, and it had learned that I recognized it. That made me a liability. Or worse, when asset. That night, as I locked my apartment door and checked the windows for the third time, my phone buzzed again. A notification from an unknown app I didn't remember. Installing, the icon was a simple outline of a building. Inside, there was only one message. New assignment available. Below it in smaller text. Night shift, different location, updated rules attached. I stared at the screen until it dimmed. Somewhere not far away, a place like the mall was getting ready for its next guard. And it already knew my name. I didn't accept the assignment. I didn't decline it either. I turned the phone face down on the table and walked away, like distance alone might break whatever thin thread still connected me to that place. The screen stayed dark, silent for a few hours at least. I tried to eat something, but every bite tasted like cardboard. My stomach twisted at the thought of enclosed spaces, of hallways without windows, of lights that flickered just a fraction too late. I sat on the edge of my bed and listened to the city through the open window, sirens in the distance, a train horn somewhere far off, footsteps on the sidewalk below. Normal sounds, anchors, proof that I was still here. Sleep came in fragments. I'd drift off for 10 minutes, jerk awake, convinced I'd heard my name, then lie there staring at the ceiling until my eyes burned. Each time I checked the phone, it remained face down where I'd left it, screen dark. That almost made it worse. By morning, I was exhausted enough that the edges of things began to blur. Corners seemed deeper than they should be. Shadows lingered too long when I moved past them. I went outside just after sunrise, telling myself fresh air would help. The hallway of my apartment building felt narrower than usual, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead with that faint electrical whine I now associated with cameras and alarms. I descended the stairs instead of taking the elevator. I didn't trust elevators anymore. At the bottom, the front door stuck for a second before opening, and that brief resistance sent a jolt of panic through me. The street looked the same as always. Cars lined the curb. A delivery truck idled at the corner. Someone walked their dog across the way. I breathed in deeply, cold morning air filling my lungs and forced myself to believe that the message on my phone was just that, a message, an invitation I could ignore. That illusion lasted until I noticed the chalk. It was drawn on the sidewalk directly in front of my building's entrance. A simple symbol, a circle with a short line crossing it. I recognized it instantly, though I couldn't have said why. It matched the symbol printed faintly in the corner of the laminated rule card from the mall. My pulse quickened. No one else reacted to it. People stepped around it without looking down, shoes smearing the edges until it blurred. I backed away slowly, my eyes never leaving the mark. When I reached the end of the block, I turned and walked fast, not daring to run. I didn't stop until I reached a small park 3 streets over, where benches sat under bare trees and the open space made my chest feel less tight. I sat down and tried to think logically. Coincidence, I told myself. Stress does this. Your brain looks for patterns because it's scared. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I flinched so hard I nearly dropped it. The screen lit up on its own. The same building icon glowed softly against a dark background. Status pending. Reminder, assignment expires at 11:59 p.m. Below that, a line of smaller text appeared. Rule 3, do not ignore repeated invitations. I felt cold despite the sun. I locked the phone and shoved it back into my pocket, my hands shaking. People passed through the park, chatting, laughing, living their lives completely unaware that something had begun moving beneath the surface of all that normalcy. I wondered how many others had received messages like mine and dismissed them. How many had convinced themselves they were just stressed, just tired, just imagining things, right up until they were. On the walk home, I noticed more signs. A security guard posted outside a closed office building stared at me a second too long. The reflection in a darkened storefront window lagged half a step behind my movement. A public address system crackled to life in a subway entrance as I passed, then went silent before any words could form. Each time my phone vibrated softly like it was acknowledging something, logging it, taking notes. By the time I reached my apartment, I knew the truth I'd been avoiding. The mall wasn't asking, it was escalating. Inside, I locked the door and drew the curtains, shutting out the daylight. The apartment felt smaller again, the walls pressing in. I sat at the table and placed my phone in front of me, face up this time. The screen lit immediately, as if it had been waiting. Location option updated. Abandoned commercial complex. Security required. Below that, a countdown timer had appeared. 07:12:43. I stared at it, heart pounding. 7 hours, just enough time for doubt to fester. Just enough time to convince myself I still had a choice. I thought about Michael, about the look in his eyes when he said the mall learned. I thought about the way the rules changed once I understood what they really were, not protections, but negotiations. I wondered what would happen if I broke Rule 3, if ignoring the invitation would trigger something worse than accepting it. As if responding to the thought, another message appeared. Rule 4, declining is not the same as refusal. My mouth went dry. What happens if I refuse? I asked the empty room, hating the way my voice trembled. The phone chimed softly, almost kindly. Refusal requires replacement. Images flashed across the screen too fast to fully process. Security desks, empty hallways, cameras blinking red, faces blurred and repeated. For a split second, I saw my own face among them. Frozen mid-expression, eyes unfocused. The timer continued to count down. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling, and finally understood the trap. The mall didn't need to force me back inside a building. It had already stepped out. It lived in systems, routines, rules that people followed without thinking. Security wasn't about safety anymore. It was about continuity. If I accepted, I might survive another night, learn more, delay whatever came next. If I didn't, someone else would take my place. Someone unprepared. Someone who wouldn't know the rules. My phone buzzed again, one last message sliding onto the screen. Final notice pending. Outside, somewhere down the block, a security alarm chirped and fell silent. I picked up the phone. Not to accept. Not yet. But because I knew the next part of the rule was already being written. And whether I liked it or not, it was being written with me in mind. I sat there with the phone in my hand until the screen dimmed again, the countdown still ticking behind the black glass like a second heart beating out of sync with my own. I didn't feel brave, I didn't feel ready. What I felt was tired in a way sleep couldn't fix, tired of running from spaces that watched me, tired of rules that rewrote themselves the moment I understood them. The mall had taken something from me that night, something subtle but permanent, a sense of ignorance. I could never unknow what buildings were capable of once you listened closely enough. I stood and packed slowly, deliberately, not because I had accepted the assignment, but because my body already understood what my mind was still resisting. Flashlight, extra batteries, notebook, a cheap digital watch with no smart features. I left my keys on the table, then picked them up again. The apartment felt like a temporary shelter now, not a home. I wondered how many times I'd walked past places like the one on my phone without realizing what waited inside them after dark. At 11:43 p.m., my phone buzzed again. No sound, just a vibration strong enough to rattle the table. Assignment confirmed. Role night security. Location WSDRIDG Commercial Complex. Status active. I didn't remember pressing accept. The address appeared beneath the text, followed by a map pin. It was only 20 minutes away, too close, always too close. A final line faded in slowly, letter by letter. Updated rules available upon arrival. I closed my eyes and exhaled. One night, I whispered to no one, "That's all." The words felt hollow, like a lie I'd already told myself too many times. The drive there was quiet, no radio, no static. The streets thinned as I left the residential blocks behind, giving way to wide roads lined with dark storefronts and closed offices. The complex came into view suddenly, rising out of the darkness like a forgotten monument. A sprawling shape of concrete and glass, most of its windows boarded up, its parking lot cracked and empty except for a single car near the entrance. My stomach dropped when I recognized the shape of that car. Mine. The same dent, same license plate. Parked exactly where I would have parked. I stayed in my own vehicle for a long time, hands gripping the steering wheel, breath fogging the windshield. When I finally forced myself to step out, the air felt colder here, heavier. The complex loomed above me, its facade lit by a few flickering security lights that buzzed with that familiar electrical whine. The main entrance doors were unlocked, standing slightly ajar like an invitation that pretended to be accidental. Inside, the lobby smelled of dust and old carpet. A security desk sat just beyond the doors, monitors dark, chair pushed back as if someone had just stood up. On the desk lay a laminated card. I didn't want to touch it. I did anyway. Night Security, WSDRIDG Complex. Rule 1, do not assume this is your first night. My hands shook as I read the rest. The rules were familiar in structure, but not in detail. New variations, new conditions, references to places I didn't recognize but somehow knew. stairwells that repeated themselves, cameras that showed tomorrow instead of now, voices that used my name only after midnight. What? To the bottom of the card, in smaller text, a final note had been added. Previous guard complied, replacement required. I looked up sharply, scanning the empty lobby. My reflection stared back at me from the dark glass of a closed storefront. For a split second, it smiled before I did. I turned away, heart racing. A monitor behind the desk flickered to life. Black and white footage filled the screen. A hallway view, a familiar hallway, my apartment building. The camera angle showed my own front door. On screen, the timestamp read 10 minutes earlier. The door opened. Someone stepped out wearing my jacket, my boots, my face. He paused, looked directly into the camera, and raised a hand in a slow, deliberate wave. The feed cut out. The monitors all went dark again. I backed away from the desk, pulse roaring in my ears. The truth settled into me with awful clarity. This wasn't about choosing whether to accept the assignment. That decision had already been made by something that didn't see me as a person anymore, but as a process, a function, a role that needed filling. The mall had learned. The complex had learned. And now the system had learned how to let me go without really letting me leave. The lights overhead flickered once, then stabilized. Somewhere deeper in the building, a door slammed shut. The sound echoed, multiplied, repeating until it felt like the building itself was breathing in. I clipped the radio to my belt, even though I didn't remember picking it up. Night security reporting, a voice said softly over the speakers. My voice. I closed my eyes for just a second, long enough to steady myself. When I opened them, I stood behind the desk, laminated rules in my hand, monitors glowing softly in front of me. The chair was warm, like someone had just vacated it. The watch on my wrist ticked over to 12:00 a.m. The shift had begun. Somewhere far away, a version of me walked free, unaware of the rules he was no longer allowed to remember. And somewhere inside the building, something patient and vast adjusted itself, already preparing the next update. Because as long as there were places that needed watching, there would always be rules, and someone would always be left behind to follow them. Oka now write one question for viewers and say TA for part 1, 2, and last backhand index pointing right. Do you think he ever truly escaped, or did the rules just follow him somewhere else? Candle, if you want more stories like this, subscribe and don't ignore the rules.